Okay, so we're going to talk about the multiple perspectives question on the ACT science section. So here's what they're telling us. We should read the entire blurb at the top, skip the viewpoints and go straight to the questions. Look for the single viewpoint question and then read the viewpoints to answer that question. So that's what we're going to do. So the question that we have today is this passage here. So you should have the paper copy or should have picked up the paper copy in class of this question. So the very first thing it tells us to do is to read this opening blurb. Biological aging is a process by which functions within an animal cell gradually decline, causing the cell to age. Four students each proposed an explanation of how this process occurs. And we've got the explanation there. All right, so the next thing we do is to go straight to the questions and find the question that has only one perspective. Unfortunately, in this one, it's only one question, but we're going to answer this question first. This is based on student two's explanation. So we're going to go to student two's explanation. We're going to only answer this question. We're only going to read student two. Biological aging is caused solely by the formation of cross-links, a type of chemical bond between the proteins in a cell, causing these proteins to form clumps. These clumps accumulate in the cell, interfering with the cell's function, causing its age. Although ROS is damaging to proteins and lipids, this damage never occurs in the cell because the amount of antioxidants produced by the cell is always greater than what is needed to eliminate all of the ROS produced in the cell. Okay? All right, so students X2 explanation. The substances present in the cell are most directly involved with biological aging are composed from what type of subunits? So the answer is protein. The protein's not one of our choices. So we're going to have to look at the choices that we have. And I know that amino acids are the building blocks of protein. So amino acid F is going to be the answer to this question. All right, so now if you have time remaining, you're going to read and answer the remaining questions in this section. Now, this should be the one that you do last, so this should be all the questions that you have left. So if time is running out, guess, and then go back and answer the questions that you can get to, but do not leave any answers blank. All right, so we're going to go back to 20 because that's the first one. We are going to skim passages looking for key terms. We're not going to read any of these passages. So we'll look at the question first. Which of the students, if any, claim that biological aging is caused by a substance produced by cellular respiration? Okay, so we're looking for cellular respiration. All of the passages are about biological aging. So as I skim the passages, I see cellular respiration in two students' explanations, student one and student four. So the answer for this one is G. That's it. Moving on. Number 21 says, suppose it was determined that the rate of biological aging in an animal cell is directly proportional to the number of chemical bonds formed between the proteins in that cell. This finding would be most consistent with the explanation given by what? Okay, so if I remember from student two, they talked about proteins, chemical bonds. So I go back, skim this one. Yep, she says chemical bonds, or he says chemical bonds and proteins. Student two is the answer for this one. Moving on. In 23, it says kerosene is a substance that prevents protein cross-linking in animal cells, which student would be most likely to predict that the average concentration of kerosene in the cells of young adults would be greater than the average concentration of kerosene in the cells of elderly adults. Again, I'm not looking for kerosene, I'm looking for protein and cross-linking. Those are the key terms I'm looking for. So as I scan through, I see cross-linking and proteins in student two. So student two is going to be the most likely student to put this passage or to agree with this passage. So then I go to 24. Which of the students claim that biological aging occurs because a substance accumulates into clumps that interfere with cellular function? So now my key terms I'm looking for is accumulating into clumps. So I go through and I find proteins cause clumps. These clumps accumulate in the cell, interfering with cell function. That's student two. Then I find clumps. Okay, so lipofuscin clumps accumulate in the cell, interfering with cell function. That's it, 2 and 4. And that's all I read. And then I move on. Okay, so that's how we do multiple perspectives.